out for number 10, we have the Javan tiger. This tiger subspecies was native to the Indonesian island of Java. It was a lot smaller than its Asian cousins on the mainland. Now despite this, they were no less scary to the local people there, who would respectfully call them Mr. Tiger in case one of them was ever listening. As the human population there swelled in the early 20th century, the Javan tiger retreated to the mountains where they preyed on deer and wild boar. That's where the last ones were sighted in 1976, and despite huge searches for them since then, it's thought they went extinct not long after. And next up at number 9 now, we have the sea mink. Have you guys ever heard of or seen in real life a real fur mink coat? They used to be very popular. The thing is, they were made from the fur of the sea mink. This creature was native to the coasts of Maine and New Brunswick. They were longer and bulkier than other mink species, which made their coats almost twice as big. Because of this, they were hunted to extinction somewhere between 1860 and 1870, meaning any mink coat you see made from a sea mink is going to be pretty old indeed. Moving on to our number 8 now, we have the great auk. This flightless bird lived in the colder parts of coastal Canada, Greenland, Iceland, and other European fringes. It might look a bit like a penguin, but it really wasn't. These things mated for life, they lived in dense colonies and laid just one single egg on a bare rock. They lived alongside humans for about 100,000 years, but by the early 20th century their numbers were dwindling. In a cruel twist of fate, museums wanting to preserve their eggs for display only sped up their extinction, and the last one was seen in 1852. Coming in at number 7 now, we have the Tacopa pupfish. This tiny critter could only be found in 2 single hot springs in the Mojave Desert in California. They were trapped there when nearby lakes evaporated over the past 10,000 years and had lived there ever since. They were small, just over an inch or so in size, but were incredibly heat resistant. They could quite happily live in waters of up to 43 degrees Celsius or more. Sadly, being good with heat isn't everything when it comes to survival. Humans modified the area around them to build bathhouses at the springs and inadvertently introduced invasive fish species as well, leading to the Tacopa pupfish being declared extinct in the early 1970s. At number 6 now, we have the Puyuli bird, also known as the black-faced honey creeper. The Puyuli bird was discovered in Hawaii for the very first time in 1973. One of the reasons it took so long to discover them was just how small the population was. In 1980, scientists estimated the population to be just 140 birds. With such small numbers, it seemed they really started to suffer from human development in Hawaii. They lost their territory, they were eaten by human-introduced mammals such as cats, and died to new diseases. The last wild Puyuli bird was seen in 2004, and tissue samples were taken to potentially clone it back into existence in the future. Moving on to number 5 now, we have the Canarian oyster catcher. The Canary Islands off the coast of West Africa are home to many amazing species, and the oyster catcher used to be one of them. Now, as you guys might guess from its name, it ate oysters and other shoreline creatures. It went extinct sometime before 1940 for a number of different reasons. Firstly, humans overfished its food source. It also got attacked by rats and cats, and finally, humans absolutely loved the taste of their eggs. Unfortunately, too many eggs were eaten. Okay, coming in at number 4 now, we have the Round Island burrowing boa. As its name suggests, this snake loved to burrow down into the soil on its tiny home of Round Island just off the coast of Mauritius. It grew up to 1 meter in length, was light brown with black spots, and had a pointed snout. It was thought to have eaten lizards but suffered habitat loss by soil erosion due to overgrazing there by goats and rabbits. It was last seen in 1975. You see, sometimes it's not just humans who make things go extinct. Goats are kind of to blame as well. Not really. Alright guys, next up at number 3 now, we have the Mexican grizzly bear. You guys might picture grizzly bears living in the American mountains or Canadian wilderness, but for a long time they had cousins in Mexico. They reached up to 6 feet tall and could weigh over 700 pounds. Now, for the most part, the bears and the humans avoided each other in this area, but when bears started killing cattle, the farmers considered them a pest and encouraged people to hunt them. Hunting them was banned, but by 1950, only 30 of them were left. The hunting continued, and the last one was thought to have been sighted in 1964. Alright, moving on to number 2 now, we have the bulldog rat. Look at this chubby little thing. Some people found it cute, other people found it kind of scary. Either way, it used to thrive on Christmas Island, 1,000 miles off the coast of Australia. It wasn't the actual size of a bulldog, but it was bigger than the rats we know today, coming in at a whopping 17 inches in size. They lived almost alone on their island for thousands of years with no known predators. It became extinct at the start of the 20th century, presumably from diseases carried there by European rats on ships. And finally at number 1 now we have the Falkland Islands wolf. Their home was the Falkland Islands in the South Atlantic, where it was the only native land mammal there. They were not scared of humans at all, but humans saw them as a threat to their sheep. They were easily lured to people by simply holding out a piece of meat, and they were then killed. The Falkland Islands wolf didn't learn to not be trusting of humans and became officially extinct in 1876.
Kicking off the list at number 10, the golden toad. The disappearance of the golden toad is the first extinction in history to be blamed on man-made global warming. Good job, guys. What better way to kick off this eye-opening part 2? The golden toad extinction event happened pretty recently and pretty quickly. In their home of Costa Rica, it was considered a good omen, or it was lucky if you saw it. I mean, obviously, it's a golden toad. If this was Super Mario, that would for sure be a star. You know, it catches the eye, it's beautiful. But then sightings became more and more rare come 1987. It was no question these little dudes were disappearing. Not just golden toads either. Nearly half of all frogs and toads within a 30-kilometer radius were dying off. Thing is, there weren't any humans around here either. People weren't scooping up golden toads and taking them back. The area was free from human interaction, which tipped scientists off. Now we can conclude that the cause was for sure climate change. See, as it got warmer and warmer, the frogs became more susceptible to the chytrid fungus, which was already destroying frog populations worldwide. And we of course just didn't help. Sorry, golden frogs. Number 9, aurochs. The great-great-great-grandfather of our modern day cattle. These big boys were quite aggressive, but humans were of course way worse. Classic. Eurasian aurochs were these massive wild ox that walked gracefully through the lands of Europe, Asia, and Siberia. The average height for one of these guys was around 6 feet, but their horns made them appear much larger. See, because of these impressive horns, they were viewed as aggressive animals. So often in ancient Roman arenas, they were used for sport. So that surely didn't help. They were aggressive when locked inside a death arena. Wow, get out of town, really? You don't say. By the time the 13th century rolled around, the only humans allowed to hunt aurochs, because their number was so low, were royals and nobles. This animal is endangered, unless you're rich, I guess. Come 1564, there were only 38 left, and 1627 marks the last time one was seen alive. She died in Poland due to natural causes. It wasn't, warriors this time around. Number 8, Aliotra griebe. Sounds like a Harry Potter spell, let's do it. These guys were a species of grabe, which are aquatic diving birds, and they made their homes in the beautiful lakes around Madagascar. Throughout the 20th century, their population was rapidly declining because of habitat destruction, as well as the introduction of the blotched snakehead, which then began to prey on them. First their homes were reduced, and then this bully of a fish swims in and starts taking names. Double whammy, sorry guys. Their extinction was official come 2010, which is super recent when thinking about something like the dodo bird. Scientists were hesitant to officially classify them as extinct because of the fact that their home is so remote and tiny. They were hard to find. There were thorough surveys in the area in 1989, 2004, and 2009 that all failed to find any remaining evidence of the species, and on top of that, the last confirmed sighting was all the way back in 1982. If you're thinking maybe they flew away, good idea, but think again. These guys had tiny wings, so traveling long distance was a no-go. It's believed they couldn't have found a home. Pretty sad, right? Well, hit that thumbs up and we'll do a part 3 to wash it all down. Number 7, the dodo bird. Remember these funny dudes from the movie Ice Age? Well, we wiped them out too. Pretty much. They were once big and beautiful. These flightless ground nesting birds once filled the island of Mauritius, located in the Indian Ocean. They had massive talons, they were gray and blue, they were beautiful, they didn't have any natural predator, all was going well until we came along. Around 1507, the island was discovered by Portuguese sailors, and the rest is history. They were the easiest bird to hunt, hence the phrase dead as a dodo. They weren't just loved by sailors either, we're not 100% to blame here. There was monkeys, rats, pigs, any animal that made its way to the island easily had their eggs for lunch. So it didn't take a long time for the dodo bird population to be completely wiped out. The last dodo was hunted in 1681, and if it wasn't then, it would have been like a year later. Imagine dodo bird chicken wings now? That's all I'm saying, we're kind of the worst. Number 6. Catarina pupfish. Not to be confused with the Catalina wine mixer, the Catarina pupfish was a species of fish that was first found in 1972 and was endemic to a spring located in Nuevo Leon, Mexico. The species of fish was seen to be rapidly declining in the 80s and 90s due to their habitat being disrupted by groundwater extraction. You know the phrase, leave some for the fishies? This is what they kind of meant. This led scientists to try and save them by bringing some into captivity, which sounds weird, but hear me out. It turned out to be more difficult than anticipated. In 1994, the fish ended up being extinct in the wild, so the only members of the species remaining were the ones brought back into captivity. Sadly, the last remaining male of the species passed away in 2014, which was when the species became officially extinct, because you got it. Number 5, the Labrador duck. Long before we ate this bird to extinction, the Labrador duck was a rare sight to see. Also referred to as the pied duck or the skunk duck because of its coloring, we really don't know much about this guy to this day, behavior-wise. We know that it liked to hang out in sheltered bays, harbors in New Jersey, Long Island, New England, and of course coastal Labrador. Did it honk or did it beep? That's a deep joke right there. The honk and the beep, different words for different places, you get it. The Labrador duck went extinct in the 1870s, and it's because, we believe, we ate it to death. The bird was known to taste bad, but it was pretty cheap for meat in the market, so you get it, Bob's your uncle. Long before duck hunt, these birds were also hunted either for eggs, feathers, or just for fun. Another reason they went extinct is because we stole their lunch. The ducks were often in competition with us over their main food source, mollusks. The last known specimen was shot in New York. Yeah, shot like a mob boss. What a sad way for a species to go out. Number 4, bulldog rat. I'll be honest, I'm kind of glad the bulldog rat is no longer a thing. It's disgusting, I don't like rats, sorry. Check this unit out. Known to be even larger than black rats, the bulldog rat was last seen around 1903, the same time speed walking was introduced to the Olympics. Coincidence? Completely, absolutely. They have 2 to 3 centimeters of fat on their backs, so gross, with short tails and thick hair. Yeah, a rat with thick ass hair. Not a fan. Again, sorry if you're a rat person. I can't even look at these things. I didn't include any images when I was writing this. Despite this thing not sounding holly and or jolly, its home was that of Christmas Island in the Indian Ocean. Sailors were responsible for this extinction. They pulled up to the island, Christmas Island, and brought with them no gifts but black rats riddled with disease. Yeah, it took less than a year to wipe out an entire rat species. Hashtag rats with fat. Number 3, Pyrenean ibex. The horns on this thing? Are you kidding? What have we done? The Pyrenean ibex went extinct around 2000. They said the world was going to end, and for these guys, it did. A subspecies of the Spanish ibex, the Pyrenean ibex were native to the Pyrenees Mountains on the border of Spain and France. See, back in the medieval ages, their population was reduced drastically to an endangered level. They were all over, but you know, knights and swords and bows and people were hungry, they obviously didn't last long. That and disease spread by humans, that also played an important role in their demise. But here's the craziest part and the main reason I wanted this guy on our list. They tried to clone one back in 2003. It failed, obviously, but a cloned extinct animal. Sounds familiar. Number 2, the woolly mammoth. Believe it or not, scientists are trying to bring this one back from extinction. Yeah, it was announced only months ago that a team of scientists and entrepreneurs over at a company called Colossal are planning to bring the woolly mammoth back to life. The last mammoth alive was around 7,500 years ago, right at the end of the last ice age. They want to put them back on the map. Literally, they want to put them back in the Siberian tundra. Thousands of years ago, it was once full of these hairy behemoths, but climate change slowed them down a bunch. Humans also didn't help. They needed food, and these guys provided warmth and, well, look at them. Lots of food. I can't wait until science brings back the woolly mammoth, and then in like 50 years, they get to go extinct all over again. Like, let's just learn from mistakes, I don't know. And finally, coming in at number 1, the northern white rhinoceros. We had the western black rhinoceros in part 1, so we might as well finish on the sad reality that is the 2018 extinction of the northern white rhino. There are no more males left. The last male passed away in 2018, so this is just a lost cause really when it comes to saving these guys. On top of that, in recent news, one of the 2 remaining female rhinos is being retired from the international breeding program put into place. Her name is Najin, she's 32 years old, and she lives in a Kenyan nature preserve with her daughter Fatu. Now, both Najin or her daughter are able to carry a rhino calf. Their only hope really before this was to collect the rhino's eggs, send them to a lab, and then they extracted sperm from the 2 deceased males, and scientists were hoping to implant them into a surrogate mother from the southern white rhino population. The group running the operation, BioRescue, spoke out recently. The head veterinarians Frank Goritz and Stephen Gulu said, "Retiring one individual from a conservation program because of animal welfare considerations is usually not a question to think about for long, but when one individual is 50% of your entire population, you consider this decision television several times. Yeah, 32 years old, more than fair. This isn't on her or her daughter. It's on poachers, probably. Cheers. Kicking off the list at number 10, passenger pigeons. Commonly confused with the mourning dove, the passenger pigeon once ruled the skies over Canada as recently as the 19th century. They're quite similar to the pigeons that we see every day in the city, only instead of being aggressive and, covered in mayonnaise, they were graceful, dare I say. They were beautiful. Billions of these bright orange birds would paint the skies, and rumor has it, they would fly in flocks so large it would block out the sun for about an hour or a long period of time. Flocks that block, how incredible is that? But only a few decades passed and passenger pigeons are no more. What happened? Well, the very last passenger pigeon was Martha. Yeah, Martha passed away in the Cincinnati Zoo back in 1914, so we took a look at her DNA to see if Martha held any secrets to their extinction. They discovered that Martha had a low genetic diversity for such a growing population. It's our growing population, guys. It's because we wanted to, now we can't have any Marthas. Natural selection and hunting eliminated arguably the coolest looking bird out there. Hashtag save Martha. Number 9, the smooth-hand fish. Not to be confused with Cool Hand Luke, the smooth-hand fish was the first time in modern history where a marine type fish went extinct. How? Okay. This fish was a shallow water bottom dweller, and I personally love him because he looks so angry all the time. He looks like one of Bowser's minions. He looks like he's in a terrible mood. He has a horn that protrudes out of his face, so honestly, I don't blame him, TBH. Just 200 years ago, you would have seen these smooth dudes in the land down under. It lived in Australia, in Tasmania's warm waters, and what made this fish so unique, as its name hints towards, is its hands. Not its jazz hands, but its smooth hands. He has some little smooth hands. The smooth-hand fish would seemingly walk along the ocean floor. It uses its fins as hands. So an angry-looking fish with a horn coming out of its face would walk towards you slowly underwater. That's not terrifying at all. Hard pass. Graham Edgar, marine ecologist at the University of Tasmania, shed some light on its habits, explaining that these fish were homebodies. They didn't have a large habitat. They spent most of their time sitting in the seabed with an occasional flap for a few meters if they're disturbed. Just an occasional. At that point, they would just walk away with their hands just away from the drama. Number 8, the great auk. Its name makes you think that this is the size of a moose or it's some type of ox, when in fact it's really just a cute flightless seabird. Look at it. Once thriving in colonies off North Atlantic coasts, the great auk would grow up to 30 inches long, and its tiny wings, though, would only be used to swim. Little penguin flappy arms, no wonder they couldn't fly. Look at those things. They were cute and also quite defenseless. Around the 1500s, European fishermen discovered this perfect area for hunting, and it just happened to be where most of these great auks were hanging out. Newfoundland literally looked like the iceberg in Club Penguin. It was packed. It was a great time, but that's how they rapidly declined. By 1950, the last 2 known specimens were hunted by a single fisherman on Eldey Island, just off the coast of Iceland. Way to go, dude. Number 7, the giant tortoise. When the Mayans said the world was going to end in 2012, honestly, they may have just been onto something. 2012 was also the year we lost the last Pina giant tortoise. His name was Lonesome George. He was by himself, as his name suggests, and for decades before his passing, scientists were trying to get him to with females of a similar subspecies, but he just wasn't feeling it. Man was tired. I mean, look at him. The guy looks exhausted already. He looks like he needs 3 coffees before swiping right on mating apps. Lonesome George and his wrinkly-necked friends weighed in at about 400 pounds, growing up to 6 feet long. They were massive. They were beautiful, big neck boys. Again, this extinction comes back to us humans, with the use of tortoises as an onboard food in the 19th century and the goat population growing rapidly during the 60s and 70s, these tortoises were screwed. They ran out of food and they were just becoming food. Double whammy, double negative. Number 6, Chinese paddlefish. The Chinese paddlefish was one of the largest freshwater fish in the world, commonly measuring around 3 meters or 9.5 feet long. These fish were native to the Yangtze and Yellow River basins in China. It was one of just 2 in the paddlefish family, so pretty rare. Since the 1900s, this fish has been listed on the critically endangered list, with the 2 main culprits, of course, being, us, overfishing and habitat fragmentation. Unfortunately, in December 2019, because of several surveys that failed to locate any presence of this species, it has since been declared extinct. I hope that somewhere out there, there's a little colony of paddlefish hiding just somewhere and we just can't find them. Keep hiding, don't let us find you, we'll just fuck it up again, probably. Sadly, it's believed that this fish went extinct somewhere between 2005 and 2010. Number 5, Western black rhinoceros. The western black rhino was a subspecies of the black rhinoceros, and they made their home in the savanna of the sub-Saharan Africa. These beautiful beasts were sadly the victims of poaching. That was the main cause that led into their rapid decline. People got so greedy trying to kill these incredible, beautiful animals so they can make money, and now they can't make any money off them because they killed them all. Nailed it. Great plan. You nailed it. You played yourself. You really did. This species first originated around 7 to 8 million years ago, and for most of the 1900s, it was the highest population of rhino species, believe it or not. That all changed, of course, in the 70s because, of course, that's when the population of black rhinos in general started to decrease. But besides poachers, another cause for the decline was farmers who killed these animals in order to protect their crops that were placed close to rhino territories. The last sighting of a western black rhinoceros was in 2006 in Cameroon's northern province, and sadly the subspecies was officially declared extinct in 2011. Number 4, the splendid poison frog. Perfectly splendid. The splendid poison frog is a species of poison dart frog that was once abundant and thriving and could often be found in western Panama. Researchers believe that a chytrid fungus outbreak in their habitat led to a rapid decline of the species. In fact, this fungus is responsible for the death of a mass amount of amphibian species, as the number of amphibians has been dropping at an alarming rate in the last few decades. We can also do a list on that. Depressing. Because of this, they were basically a species of frog that was once an extremely popular pet. It is thought that there might be unknown specimens which are still alive in captivity, but unfortunately none have been found in the wild, and there aren't any currently that exist in zoos or research collections. The last time one of these frogs was recorded was in 1992. Their fungus outbreak occurred in 1996, and as of 2020 they have been listed as an extinct species. Number 3, the Morian viviparous tree snail. The Morian viviparous sounds like a Harry Potter spell. This snail was a species of air-breathing tropical land snails that were endemic to French Polynesia. The African land snail was introduced into Tahiti in 1967 as a food source, but it quickly escaped and began to destroy crops. Biologists then attempted to control the African land snail population, so they decided to introduce the rosy wolf snail to the area in 1977. Well, this went to believe it or not, although they're snails, it gets pretty aggressive. These snails have beef. The rosy wolf snail didn't just control the population of African land snails, but rather they started to eradicate all of the snails that were native to the area, which of course includes our little Morian viviparous man. So this next little introduction led them to becoming totally extinct in the wild. Keyword here, wild. These snails still exist in captivity, and there have been attempts to re-release them into the wild, but the rosy wolf snail is just sitting out there waiting for them, so they can't release them. They figure it's just gonna be a dead end. Imagine that, just 9 snails waiting outside of a lab, like. So at this point it looks like they will never be able to return to the wild, which is super sad. It also sucks that the intention really was to help these things, but it just didn't work. At least we tried this time. Number 2, bramble cay malamis. These little rodents were a species that was endemic to the isolated Bramble Cay, which is a vegetated coral cay located at the northern tip of the Great Barrier Reef in Australia. The last sighting of these cute little dudes was in 2009, and in May of 2015 they were declared extinct by the IUCN and then by the Australian government later in 2019. So it's official in many ways. The Queensland state government has cited this as the first mammal extinction due to climate change. That's because their extinction was driven by the cay's disappearing vegetation, which was due to rising sea levels. And to even further this, scientists also indicated that storm surges did not help, as it would have inevitably led some of these animals into the species, death. They would drown. One interesting thing about this species though, the scientists figured out, and they're not really sure how it got to the cay in the first place, but it's believed that perhaps they may have floated over on driftwood, which sounds so cute and funny. That's like a Disney Pixar adventure in the making right there. Imagine these dudes just floating by you. My heart. And finally, number 1, the Spix macaw. If you've recently watched the 2011 hit animated film Rio, this one should ring a bell. These guys once painted the skies in Brazil. They're absolutely beautiful. They're a medium-sized parrot weighing around 11 ounces, but unfortunately 2016 was the last time they were found in the wild. Illegal pet trade is believed to have played a significant role in the decline of their numbers. Deforestation and their need for a specialized habitat also didn't make it easy for them. While there are currently around 100 of these macaws still left in captivity, there are none in the wild, which is the biggest problem here. Scientists and animal specialists continue to do their best to keep the species alive through the process of captive breeding, and their hope is to one day be able to reintroduce them to the wild, effectively reversing their extinction in the world. It doesn't happen very often that we get a chance to reverse an animal extinction, so I figured we'd end this list off with a little bit of hope. Nice, we love it.